Hello everybody, it's Donna here from Blind and Knitting. It's the 4th of June and this is episode 29. I hope you're all well and snuggled up. It's quite cold here today and we've got the fire going. However, that's probably the first cold day we've had. Yesterday I was in a singlet. What's with this weather? I don't know, it's all topsy-turvy, but it's cold today, so perfect day for knits. And talking about knitting as well. So I hope you're all well. I've just come back from a long weekend over in Australia visiting my son. His youngest lad was 1, so I couldn't miss the first birthday. So my daughter and her husband and myself whipped over and sounds like whipping over. We went over to Sydney and spent some time with family in Wollongong, and my son-in-law has never been to Sydney, so we spent a couple of days sort of doing the typical sightseeing stuff as well. Yeah, it was a lovely time with family, and I for some reason I've lost the ability to add photos, so my apologies. You might have to go on my Instagram photo, but I had a lovely photo taken, and I thought to myself afterwards, I made everything in that photo. And it was my son, my daughter, and my dress I was wearing, and my jersey I'd knit. And I thought, yes, I made everything in that photo. Anyway, welcome, and welcome back if you're a returning viewer. If you do enjoy this, please put a thumbs up under my podcast, and it just helps with the algorithms and gets my podcast out there a bit more so that it becomes a little bit more watched, but also I've had some wonderful comments back. I've had so many beautiful people chatting to me, so thank you so much for your comments, and we've been communicating a lot. So last time I spoke a little bit about accessibility, and one of the things I talked about was getting my guide dog over to Australia and how challenging that is. And so there's been some movement around there, so I've written a letter of complaint. I've sent it absolutely everywhere. I've sent it to the Department of Fisheries over in Australia, I've sent it to the Ministry of Primary Industries in New Zealand, and I've sent it all sorts of places. And I have been linked up with another woman who has a guide dog who has been to Australia and had the same problem. So her and I are going to fight the fight and try and get it so that we can take our guide dogs over to Australia so much more simply, so that we don't have to feel we have to leave them behind because of expense and challenges with vets and cost and medication for the dogs and all sorts of things. So it's a bit of a fight going on at the moment. So it'll be interesting to follow that through and see what happens. I said to the lovely lady I was talking to this morning who has a guide dog in the same issue, we'll meet on the steps of Parliament, maybe bring my sleeping bag and I'll sleep on the steps of Parliament until this is sorted, because it's discrimination at its utmost. And her and I certainly both have the fire in our belly to fight the fight. So if you're in New Zealand and you're listening to this and you do know someone who is discriminated against by not being able to take their guide dog, service dog, assistance dog back and forth to Australia and back, please make contact. My email is blindandknitting, all one word, all lowercase, @gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. That would be great. So that's kind of my political stance at the moment, I suppose, is my fire in my belly about that. But apart from that, it's been ticking along as normal. Just work's been really busy. Has it been busy? And so let's get down to the knitting, shall we? My obvious one, my FO. What do you think? This is, and I'll get my notes so that I've got it right. This is the Fairy Bouquet, and there's the pattern. So I have talked about this a little bit. I'll stand up if possible and show you. You're not going to be able to see, are you? So, it's a lovely length. It's got an interesting pattern down the sleeves. They're supposed to be butterflies on the sleeves. And a lovely round neck. So it's a top down. It's top down. With a yoke, round yoke, and the designer is Joanna Ang, A-N-G, or Eng, I assume. It's called Fairy Bouquet. This is, and I have talked considerably about this, but I'm going to do a wind-up thing about it now. So this is a 10-ply wool that I bought 13 years ago for something else, and frogged it and stashed the wool and came across it, and I thought, right, I'm going to knit that up because I saw Lana from, Yana from Finnish knitting podcast, whom I just love, and she'd knit one. So I thought, right, yeah, fallen in love with this because I mean the top is really pretty. I like how the rib, this twisted rib goes around here and the twisted rib here, and then you have the twisted rib following. And to be honest, those butterflies, they're supposed to go all the way down, but I didn't. I stopped. I only did 3. Yeah, I was feeling quite brain dead, and I just wanted to knit, so I did. Really happy with it. It's 10 ply. It's very, very thick, almost blanket thick. So it's probably not something I will wear on a day-to-day basis. It's probably something I'll pull out for, like a barbecue outside in the cold, which us Kiwis love to do, especially in the rural world. We all tend to sit around a bonfire or a what are they called? Forgot what they're called, the things that you create the fire in. And so we also tend to sit around those and have social time. So this will be the perfect jersey for that. Very thick, super warm. It's 100% wool. It was not spun, so it was just, it had no ply to it. So it was just straight wool, and beautiful to knit, just very easy on my hands. Did get a bit heavy near the end because it is, as I say, it almost stands up on its own. It's going to be interesting to see what happens after I've, because this hasn't been blocked. So I'm not sure what'll happen, but I'm hoping that that'll kind of relax a little bit and just sort of loosen up. It's quite solid. I did do, and this again was because I just wanted to knit, so I did puffed sleeves, which is the first I've ever done. Really liked it, so I just knit until I got to where I wanted, and did a very fast decrease, and then knitted the twisted rib band. It's got a lovely little cable that goes all the way down and all down the side, just to give it a little bit of feature. So it's got some nice little features, but it's also just plain knitting on the body. I love the twisted rib. Really enjoyed knitting this. Recommend the pattern. It was a nice easy pattern. I just got lazy near the end and couldn't be bothered doing the butterflies all the way through. That was purely my laziness. The butterflies were an interesting thing to do. I'd never done them before. So you pick up 3 stitches and put them on a cable needle, and then you wind the wool around the bottom of the cable needle twice, and then knit those 3 stitches back on. So you kind of get, I'm not going to be able to show you. Can I see if I can move that closer? You kind of get, yeah, I don't know if you can see that. I can't see it, so I hope you can. I hope you haven't got seasick from me moving that either. So, really enjoyed this. I started it on the 1st of April, finished it yesterday, so 3rd of June, so 8 weeks to knit. I am still working on my Birkin, so I've been going back and forward. I obviously didn't take this away with me. It was much too heavy to take for luggage. So for those 8 weeks of probably 7 weeks of knitting, which is a little bit longer than I normally do, but because I've been going back and forward on my Birkin, I followed the pattern. It was knit with 4.5mm needles, and I went up to a 5 because I did the neck, and a little bit of this yoke didn't swatch. And I found that it was just too solid. I needed it a little bit more open, and probably in hindsight I perhaps could have gone up to a 5.5 just to get more open. But it's funny really, because the pattern's for 10 ply. I thought I had 10 ply. This is my sight thing, happily going away. And then I took a photo of the wool tag and spread it out so I could see it better. It's 12 ply, so but it fits well. I really like it. Could have maybe been half an inch longer, but I think it's the sort of thing that I will wear with a nice skirt or some baggy linen pants. So this length will be great. Well, not so great on tight jeans and things, but certainly with linen pants or something, I think this length will be perfect. So apart from that, I did all of the pattern as the pattern says. Yeah, I used 14 skeins of wool, which is considerable, but I am 6 foot and very long arms, so that is probably not unusual for me. I've got 3 left, and I thought I might knit I don't do hats because I get too hot, but I thought I might knit a band, one that keeps your ears warm, and just across there. So yeah, but matchy, but if I've got the wool, I can whip one of those up at some stage, she says, and I may never do it, but the wool's there. It certainly owes me nothing. 13 years I've had the wool, and I've finally made a garment out of it. So yeah, so there's my fairy bouquet, my FO. How's your knitting going? I hope your knitting's going well. I'll just have a cup of tea. Whoops, because I'm a bit thirsty. Us all over here on this side of the planet coming into winter, I'm getting excited because it's, as the Americans say, sweater weather. Yeah, it's nice to be able to knit coming into the cold and think, oh, it's going to be cold and I can wear that. So I do like that for knitting. And I mean, I've got my socks on, my homemade socks today, and this is very warm. I've just got my farm pants on, so not very flash, but there's my homemade socks. I'm quite impressed at 60. I can still get my leg up there. My God, didn't think I could do that. So, oh. Are you okay? Are you okay? Oh my gosh, I didn't realise that I kicked the camera tripod. I'm so sorry. I hope you're not feel this, now you know what it feels like to fall. Hope that's okay. Welcome back from that trip. See you next time. So where was I? I've convolvulated myself completely. Right, what am I doing? So this is my lovely, and I just love this. I have worn it. It is my Petite Knits Weekender vest that I knit in 10 ply. I've forgotten the name of the wool, sorry, apologies, but I have talked about it in the past. But it was always just that wee bit too long. So last night and this morning I frogged the ribbing, and I've put another set of needles on, and I am going to re-knit the rib shorter, so that it's just, how sometimes you can put something on, you just know it's too long, you keep tucking it up and pulling it up, so I'm going to fix that because I absolutely love this. It's pulled quite a bit, I have to say. Hadn't even noticed it till I took it off and had a look, so it needs gleam, which I will do. But that's what I've been working on this morning, and that's my mission tonight, is to re-knit the rib on it and make it smaller. When I was away in Aussie, I obviously didn't want to take this because it's too big, so I decided to, not that bag, take some, what I did is, in one afternoon I sat down and did a whole lot of casting on, and I thought, right, I'll just do whatever I feel it is the mood takes me at the time. So on the plane and in the airport, I knit on some socks that I had, and that's not them, that's not them. Oh gosh, I hope I haven't lost them. I'll have to find them later. They may still be in my suitcase. I don't know where they are. But I did potter along with a pair of socks, but I also potted along with, this is wool that I bought in Australia last time I went. Sheep's wool, really pretty colours. And I haven't done a lot, to be honest, but I did start a shawl, just a simple shawl with I'm going to do it on quite big needles, like I think they're about a 6 millimetre, so it's going to be nice and big and open and airy, so it'll be one of those shawls that I can just throw on when I'm just feeling a little cold, needing just a little bit of warmth. So that was worked on, not much by the way. I did work on my socks and my gloves, and I don't know where they are. What's this in here? You know, sometimes when you think you've got too much going on, I think I've got too much going on. I'm sorry, I can't show you them. That's a real shame because I have no idea where they are. But anyway, they were a simple pair of, I was using the pattern 9-inch vanilla socks. It's nice and simple, and I got about 4 inches in on one pair, so I will bring those next time. When we were flying over there, I've flown over with my daughter before, but she's always had her kids with her. And one of the things that I knew but I didn't recognise was this bigger issue for her is her fear of flying, or fear of heights. What she's discovered as she's got older, it's not the flying but it's the fear of heights. And because when she's she's had children, she has coped. She's kind of sucked it in, and nobody's really known. But because she was the child and I was the mother, she was able to relax a little bit, and she was really distressed, which shocked me a wee bit. So she was in tears going up and in tears going down, and yeah, I really felt for her. But what it did remind me of is her resilience, and how she knew it was a means to an end, and she had to kind of get through it and push through it. So resilience in the dictionary means to be able to push through something difficult, get through something difficult in a timely manner. So, and that's what she certainly did. She got through something very difficult. So her resilience was really good. And so I thought I would talk about resilience in my little wee chat, because quite a few years ago now, gosh, time goes fast, doesn't it? You shouldn't even add up the time. I went over to Vanuatu 3 months after Cyclone Pam had happened. It was just such a tragic sight. There was boats that had been planted on the top of the hill, embedded in the hill, and it was just a tragic thing to see. And because they already live in shanties and little huts that had just gone, the families were now living under bits of corrugated iron tied together and tarpaulins, and I was just devastated for them. And we went to this little island, and I was walking around, and there was this group of kids, and there had been 4 or 5. There was probably about 10 of them or so, and they were running around with sticks, hitting leaves, and they were just having the loveliest time and giggling away, and I thought, oh, how lovely. And I thought that was so nice to see their resilience and how they'd actually come through such a tragic cyclone and the kids were still able to sort of up and play and be resilient and strong from it. And then when I got home, I worked in a preschool at the time. I managed a preschool, and I was sitting with some of the children, and if one of the other children took their toy, they would drop to the ground and they'd burst into tears, like, so the world had ended, and, they just weren't able to pull themselves out of it, and it just went on for such a long time. And I looked around and I thought, I was worried about resilience, and I knew that there'd been a real concern about the resilience of New Zealand children at the time, and I know that that's actually a bigger issue now post-COVID. This is pre-COVID. At the time, there was a lot of psychologists and social workers and nurses and doctors, etc., that we all met once a month for a while and talked around our concerns about the lack of resilience that our children have, and how we as a community can try and what can we do to help in some way. And we did put some things in place that were helpful, but I'm not sure how far it went. I actually left that job, so I can't remember the final bit. But I guess so when I came back from Vanuatu, and I was telling my colleague Frances, who I worked with for 25 years as a social workers together, she said a really interesting thing, and it's always stuck with me, and that is that we are resilience poor and resources rich. And the children in Vanuatu were resources poor and resilient rich. And I thought, there's got to be something in there. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes, children do have to understand that life is tough. There is some stuff that I just don't agree with, like if there's a race, there's no winner. You're all winners. Well, come on. These children have to learn that there is a winner, and if you didn't win, you can strive to win or accept. I think this protecting our children so much and wrapping them up in bubble wrap is so detrimental to them actually getting out, climbing up a tree and getting scratched or hurt, and not hurt. Don't get me wrong. You've got to keep safety in its relative way, but trying to get children to be resilient, to be kushla on the plane. She knew she hated doing it. She knew it was going to be hard. She'd done all of her preparation and done all the things she could possibly do to support herself, to manage. She'd talked about it with us. She had calming tissue with calming odours, smells on it. She's allergic to lavender, so it wasn't lavender. And she'd done all the things that she needed to do in preparation, but she still just had to get through it. And then at the other end, she benefited. So there's a motto or a moral to that whole story, I guess. And if you're listening, it's about resilience and trying to ensure that we learn and we teach our children that we can, tough things do happen, and we've got to be able to try and get through them and manage it through the other side. And there'll be, the reward is on the other side once you've done that. Yeah, I know resilience is hard. I don't want to minimise anyone who is struggling and finding that they're not able to get through at the moment. As a matter of trying to find your way, talking to people, getting supports, getting resources that you may need to help you do that. Exactly what Kushla did. But some, like these children in Vanuatu, they just had nothing but a stick and a leaf, and they were running around, such happy wee things. Anyway, there's a moral to that story, but I just wanted to talk about resilience today. Now, I haven't, because I finished this, I'm still pottering along with my Birkin. In the winter I am realising how difficult brown is. I'll never knit with brown again. So I am pottering along with that, but it has to be in a time when I can see. So Saturday morning or Sunday morning when I can get up, you know, and it's nice and bright and I can see is when I'm doing those. So I'm going to cast on, and I thought I'd show you what I'm going to cast on next. I'm going to do 2 cast-ons. The first one is called Inca Sweater, my boyfriend's size, and it's by Petite Knits. Now I've knit an Inca for myself before and I absolutely loved it, so I'm going to knit that for my partner. I've got this one here which Stuart chose himself. It was on sale in their mega sale, vintage skeins, vintage 10 ply abroad. It's called Skeins Vintage Abroad, and I'm sorry I cannot read the colour. So, but it's a lovely sort of stone colour, I suppose. It's coming across a bit grey there, but it's creamy grey. I've got great cream on, so you can see it's stone is the colour I would call. So I'm quite looking forward to doing that. I don't normally knit for other people, but I know that Stuart loves wool, so I'm quite happy to do that. He doesn't need it, but you know, sometimes we can do that. And the other thing I'm going to cast on is one for me. Last year when I was at Knit August Nights, Cairn, there was a lovely lady wearing a Space Tricot knit called Calliope, and that's the pattern. It's supposed to have a vintage look, so it has quite a long, it's a top down yoke, but it's got a very long rib that sits flat on here, and then a very vintage style with a long ribbed bottom and very long ribs on here. And because I brought this at the same time as I brought Stuart's on sale, I've also got Vintage Abroad 10 ply, so these two should go quite quickly. And it's a really pretty sort of cross between, it's a caramelly salmon, if that makes sense. It's quite a pretty colour. Sometimes it looks more salmony and sometimes it looks quite caramelly. So I'm quite looking forward to that. So those are going to be my 2 new cast-ons. I must admit it's quite nice not to have this massive bag with this great big garment in the middle of my lounge the whole time, taking up room. So it'll be nice to start small again and have smaller. These are obviously going to get bigger as well, but they probably won't. Well, they won't get as big as this because this is quite large. So I don't know where my socks are, and I did start what I was starting was who's the designer? I think it's a Petite Knits, and it's the bandana cowl that comes down in a point. I started that on the plane on my trip, and I frogged it because I didn't like it. It looked like a bib. I thought, no, I can't wear that. It just my grandson, who's one, was sitting beside me with a bib on. It was exactly the same shape, and I thought, no, I can't wear that. So I stopped that. I frogged it, and because I wear a lot of fingerless gloves, I wear them a lot because this part of my hand gets really cold. But I like to have my fingers free, so I cast on a pair of fingerless gloves, and they're with my socks, so I don't know where they are. I hope like heck I haven't left them somewhere. I am a bit worried that I've left them somewhere on my travels. Anyway, I'll have a look after this. So, FO, cast-ons, still going with my Birkin, I frogged my half and half wrap as well. I'm not sure if I said last podcast. I don't know why. I just fell out of love with it. I think I just questioned whether I would actually wear it. I wear a lot of shawls or scarves almost every day, but that to me came across more as a blanket to wear at home, and my house is so warm I don't wear shawls and things in the house. So I frogged it, but I did see a shawl that someone can't remember who, but I'll talk about it next time. when I start casting it on, that I'm quite keen to do. So I have got a shawl in mind for that, but it's just sitting down there, frogged, waiting for the right time. I think I will call it quits. I'm sorry I dropped you. I hope like heck I can put the two together and fix you. But worried that I don't know how to do that. But I'll give it a try. And have given you seasickness. But I've enjoyed chatting. Hope you're all well, you know, this time of the year. And I look forward to chatting. Please leave a message. I love the contact I'm getting with people. Really enjoying the contact and the messages. Make sure you put a thumbs up so that the algorithm can share the love. And I will chat to you next time. Bye for now.